is going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football, and I'm scrambling to get this video out in time. Round 6 kicks off later tonight, and just like my ex-wife used to say, I'm failing to get my tip in. Before we can get our tips in for this coming weekend, we need to take the time to reflect on the weekend that was. Round 5, gather round, 9 rounds of football, and I struck with 7 out of 9. Not too bad, pretty respectable. I feel 7 out of 9 is probably the mean, the average, and if we can break even, I'm a happy man, because for those of you that have been following my tips in the past, I've been wayward at the best of times. We've tipped Adelaide to defeat Carlton by 27, they won by 28, so we only missed that by 1. Very, very close, but we got the tick. We then got the tick for Fremantle, which was stupid, because in that game, I was watching it on the edge of my seat, wanting Collingwood to win, and got upset when they didn't, and then realised I tipped Fremantle, so I became happy again. Happy times. But this is where things start to go downhill, because after Brisbane fighting back to defeat North Melbourne, I feel Essendon fucked everyone's tips. I feel if there's anybody sitting on 8 out of 9 this week, it's because Essendon stopped them from a perfect round. Essendon defeating Melbourne was my first blemish. We tipped Sydney. I shifted to Hawthorn at the last minute. So glad I did. Geelong, GWS, and then the final game of the round, we backed Port Adelaide to defeat St Kilda, and the umpires won. Pretty fucking simple, right? 7 out of 9 I thought was respectable for me, but let's turn attention to the competition, because I feel there was some that did just a little bit better. And I was correct, because there is a decent bulk of players in the competition that tipped 8 out of 9, so congratulations must go to Welsh Duke, Ron Schill, Gramercy Riff 78, Team Wiggles, Evelyn May, Skyvo, Hearts to Hearts, Master Tipper from PA, Nado, and Brisbane Rule for all tipping the most correct amount of tips for round 5. Turning attention to the total tips, and we still have Welsh Duke out in front on 35 overall. He has been a mainstay for a number of years now over my tipping competition, so it's good to see him doing well. My top 10 then rounds out with Ron Schill, Gramercy Riff 78, Team Wiggles, Dusty Fendoff 4, Evelyn May, Big Kev Shendo, Skyvo, Hearts to Hearts, and Master Tipper from PA, with Nado, myself, and Brisbane Rule all effectively tied to be within that configuration, but outside because of margins. Congratulations again to Welsh Duke for not only tipping amongst the most correct amount of tips this week, but for being on top. Congratulations to my top 10, still plenty of moves to be made, and thank you to all 32 people in the competition so far. If you want to get on board, free to do so, check the description of this video, you will find all the links you need, but with all of the housekeeping out of the way, it's time to look ahead to round 6. The fixturing of this round absolutely fucking drives me crazy because of the early bye rounds. We now have weeks where we're going to have head-to-heads on a Friday night, overlapping by half an hour, and arguably two of the biggest, if not the biggest 2 games of the course of the weekend on Friday night, overlapping is absolutely ludicrous, and I absolutely hate it. Another reason why we should scrap opening round, but at any rate, it kicks off tonight, Carlton versus Collingwood. This is a grudge match. We know the history between these two clubs, and it's been elevated a little bit this week. For those of you that follow Dan Gorringe on social media, he has made a bet with Nick Dacos. If Carlton win, Nick Dacos shaves his head. If Collingwood win, Dan goes and gets a tattoo of Nick Dacos' choosing. Now, I've seen the ins and outs for this game. Carlton do have some big ins, especially defensively, probably none bigger than Jacob Widring coming back in, which is huge because we know forward half of the ball, Collingwood struggle a little bit. Having a look at the form guide, over the last 3, it has been Collingwood in a tight contest in 2024, a little bit bigger in 2025, and then at the back end, absolutely monstered. I do think Collingwood win this game. And Collingwood are going to win this game by, I'm going to say 25 points. I think they get it done. I think in the midfield, they're going to get ascendancy. I think forward half of the ball, they're still creative enough to maybe cause havoc. Carlton are going to go in with a very tall defense. So being able to bring the ball to ground and let the smaller players go to work is going to be big. I think defensively, from a Collingwood point of view, they're going to be able to set up exponentially better than Carlton, because Carlton's forward half, let's face it, let's not mince words, is worse than Collingwood's forward half. And I think this is going to be a battle of attrition when it comes to that midfield. Whoever can get the arm wrestle there might get a little bit of forward press and a little bit of better looks, but I think overall around the ground, Collingwood are better suited for this game, and they're going to win it by 25. Friday night, the first of two, Geelong taking on the Bulldogs. Huge game here. No Tim English in the ruck. We saw them get opened up last week against Hawthorn because of that. Does Liberatore come back in? Ed Richards is a 50-50. Who knows? I think Geelong at GMHBA get the job done here. I think even without a notable ruckman at Geelong, they have serviceable role players. Bailey Smith will get off the chain if there's nobody to clamp him. Max Holmes will get off the chain. Defensively sound if Norton doesn't play this game. The likes of Stewart, the likes of Henry, the smaller defensive types that are going to be able to set up off of half back. I think Geelong's defensive setup are going to create a huge rebound overlap, and forward half of the ball, Geelong are going to absolutely monster that defensive half of the Bulldogs. So Geelong quite easily for me. I'm going to go the way of 30 plus points. Then we have a battle of the bridge, half hour later. Sydney taking on GWS. Hard to see Sydney losing this. Again, the ruck battle is going to be absolutely monstered by Brodie Grundy. You've got the likes of Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner. They're going to get off the chain in the middle. The only saving grace for GWS is Toby Bedford is back. So does he go to Warner? Does he try to clamp Heaney? Can he take them out of the game? Even so, if he takes Isaac Heaney out of the midfield game, Heaney is that well-versed that he's able to go forward and still be offensively sound and hit the scoreboard, and that takes Bedford out of the middle. So much going for Sydney in this game, and I think Sydney win this one. I'm not going to say in a close contest. I think this is going to be the way of more than 4 goals. Saturday afternoon, the first of a few. We have the Gold Coast at home at People's First Stadium taking on Essendon. Now, Essendon absolutely monstered Melbourne. Melbourne defeated the Gold Coast. By deduction, you could argue a case for Essendon being up to the challenge to take down the Gold Coast here. No Noah Anderson, due to an appendix kind of situation going on. I think if we look at the breakdown of form, it has been Gold Coast, apart from 2024, it's been Gold Coast by a comfortable margin, and I forgot to do the form betting here just to have a look at the form of Geelong and the Dogs. It's been a battle. I mean, the Dogs came out in 2024 and did a big thing, but have a look at that. It's a good battle, but Geelong over the line, and then obviously Sydney and GWS. GWS last year absolutely trounced them, but earlier in the year it went Sydney and Sydney. So I think different circumstances. We're looking at a different GWS lineup that's been giving too much freedom to that midfield core. But back to the Gold Coast. As you can see, Gold Coast the last 3 wins. They get Petrarca back this week. No Noah Anderson, but we get to see Petrarca and Rao together for the first time. Miller maybe finds a little bit of ascendancy in this game. Don't know whether or not Gold Coast forward half of the ball is going to cough up what Melbourne did and allow Essendon's back half to chip the ball around and maintain possession. I think Gold Coast in a tighter contest than what people are expecting. I think Essendon's going to come to play. It's not going to be a blowout, but Gold Coast still pick up the 4 points. We then have Hawthorn hosting Port Adelaide at Marvel Stadium. We can see the breakdowns here. It was Hawthorn in the second outing last week, but it's been Port Adelaide both times prior. But both of those times have been in Adelaide. So being the fact that we're moving over to Melbourne, Hawthorn play well at Marvel. I think they've won their last handful of games at Marvel that they have played there. Infinitely better than what Port Adelaide is playing. You could argue Hawthorn are within the best 4 teams in the competition right now based off how they play. They're going to run an absolute muck. And I think what's going to be hurtful the most to Port Adelaide here, well, I forgot to tip the Gold Coast, which I'll do right now. This whole battle between umpire Nick Foote and Zach Butters going back to appeal means there's a lot more resources going towards that right now than focusing on the week ahead. And I think that could be a little bit taxing. So Hawthorn comfortably for me at Marvel on Saturday afternoon. Final game on Saturday sees Adelaide hosting St Kilda, which is kind of ironic because I'm pretty sure Nick Foote is umpiring this game for St Kilda again. So the memes going around is get on board the Saints. I think Adelaide are too up and about. St Kilda looked great against Port Adelaide last week, don't get me wrong, but many could argue St Kilda got over the line because of the goals that were paid and the 50s that were paid that handed them goals. I think there was about 4, maybe 5 goals they kicked that came directly from free kick, and it was a game that was decided by 14 points. So you do the math. Adelaide looked vastly impressive last week against Carlton. I mean, I know it's only Carlton, they've only won one game, but their forward press looked absolutely incredible. Their rebound work from half-back through to the forward line was sensational. Players like Rankin and Rochelle truly getting on the end of some spectacular goals, and they're going to win this one quite comfortably against St Kilda. 3 games on Sunday, first of which is at Marvel Stadium, North Melbourne taking on Richmond. I would love to say Richmond are a chance here, and maybe North Melbourne's kids get a little bit ahead of themselves and they drop the ball here a little bit, but I think the fact that they took it to the back-to-back premiers in Brisbane for a very long time last week has them better suited than what Richmond has. Richmond this year has had at least one quarter where they get blown out of the water. That'll be enough for North Melbourne to cement the win here. No Tristan Cherry gives me hope, because Tristan Cherry has absolutely destroyed us in recent years, but we've got no Toby Nankervis. We've got Oliver Hayes-Brown, very, role playable and serviceable, only in his second game though. So it's going to be interesting to see how some players go. I'd love to see how Liam Fawcett goes. I'd love to see if we make some changes and bring in some other young kids this week. I'd love to see Sam Cumming, for example, get a crack. I'd love to see Burton get a crack. Puka, Rechko. Start bringing them in. Give them a crack. If we win this game, I'm happy for this tip to be incorrect. Absolutely over the moon. But as a realist, I have to sit here and accept the fact that North Melbourne is playing exponentially better than we are. Got to tip North Melbourne here. Melbourne host Brisbane at the MCG. Going off of form as well. I forgot to look at form for these two teams. I apologise. It has been Adelaide comfortably the last 3 outings, so I backed them, especially in Adelaide. And for North Melbourne, last year was comfortable. I was actually at that smacking, unfortunately. A little bit closer the first time around, which I'm hoping we can maybe get a reflection of this. But again, we've got some big outs, so North Melbourne comfortably. Looking at the form guide for Melbourne and Brisbane, when it has been in Melbourne, last time in 2024, Brisbane did get up and win. Then it was Brisbane again, and then in a tight contest up at the Gabba, Melbourne walked away with the win. 2 completely different teams here, though. Max Gawn will come up against a ruck duo that he should get the better of, but the midfield group of Brisbane is going to be too good, I think, to control. I think forward half of the ball, they can take advantage of a very young defensive unit. Defensively, I think Brisbane are more sound and they're going to be able to shut down that forward half. They've got answers all over the ground, Brisbane. I'm happy to lock this in comfortably. Even more so, I could argue that if you were going to lock in a guaranteed tip this week, Brisbane to defeat Melbourne at the MCG might be a lock. That could be me being a little bit stupid, but I'm going ahead with that. Final game of the round is the Western Derby we have, or Derby, whichever way you look at it. West Coast taking on Fremantle. Looking at the last outings, it has been Fremantle quite comfortably. And with the way Fremantle are playing, I am going to tip them. However, this is not going to be a blowout. This is going to be a contest that I think is going to be very worthy of the final game of the round. It's going to be highlighted. Everyone's going to be able to sit down at home and watch it, and I think it's going to be a cracking game. West Coast, even though they have lost some games, have had something to take out of it and build upon. And I think this is a game where they could actually pull an upset and get a scalp. But my tips for the week: Collingwood by 25, Geelong, Sydney, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, Adelaide, North Melbourne, Brisbane and Fremantle. Very original considering they are all the favourites. If I wanted to go a little bit left field, GWS coming out and upsetting Sydney, I can see a realm of possibility. I can see a realm where the Bulldogs still get on top of Geelong. I don't think Carlton can defeat Collingwood. Can Essendon defeat Gold Coast at the Gold Coast? If it was anywhere else, maybe. At the Gold Coast, though, they're a different beast. The Gold Coast Suns playing at People's First. Hard to back against them. St Kilda upsetting Adelaide. Depends on how Nick Foot is feeling at the time. Richmond defeating North. Not as big as a, outside chance as what we've seen here with like West Coast defeating Fremantle, but I'll take some short bets this week. If that's the way I've got to roll, that's the way I've got to roll. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's video. Do hope you guys enjoyed. Do leave a like down below if you appreciate what I'm doing here, and hit that subscribe button if you want to get on board the community we are doing here. I'm always open to suggestion as well for different types of AFL content you would like to see. So if you've got any ideas, sound off in the comment section down below. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.